good evening, and a very warm welcome to all our speakers and our audience to Tata Literature Live Business Shastras. I am Reena Agrawal from Literature Live. Our book this evening is Harsh Mariwala's.
The book. I'm surprised you don't have a copy of the book and you're not holding it up.
Yeah,
Where's the
I
marketer we all know and love?
I'm, I'm waiting for your first cue.
So, I've been reading this book, Mr. Mariwala, and what a delight it is because I didn't expect to have such a vivid, dramatic feel to the whole book. I thought it would be the story of Marico and how you've created it, but I did not expect to get this origin story of, the business family of Mumbai city and how business unfolded over the years that you've been at work. Tell me, what is it that prompted you to write this book? Was it the lockdown and the time you had in your hands?
So what it prompted me to write the book was when I stepped down as managing director. That happened 5 years back. But it's taken a long time for me to write the book. I'm not a writer, and I went through my own learning curve in terms of working with some other authors, which I was not comfortable with. And so it took longer than what I expected. But whenever I spoke at a public event in the past, whenever I spoke, I always had a lot of people coming to me and telling me that you should write your own memoirs because it will have a wider circulation. So that's what those triggers which had happened earlier when I was speaking helped me accelerate this journey, and then I decided to write. I went through my own learning curve, but in the pandemic it really helped because the book was written in a business manner, and I think what it needed was high degree of emotional quotient. It also needed a lot of storytelling. It needed anecdotes, and also, as you rightly put it, it needed history of the family. So my wife, who was never authored a book, she said that will help you, and I think that really worked out well in pandemic because both of us were sitting at home, and we used to spend every day 2 hours going over the book. And I must say, for a person who has not written a book, it was amazing the kind of value add she made it happen by doing a lot of research in the family history. She talked to my uncles, and also, went on asking me to add value through anecdotes, emotional side. So what's come out, I think most of the credit I should say goes to her in terms of the quality of writing and the emotional mind as well as the anecdotes. I was also very fortunate to have Professor Charan as a co-author, and as you know, he's a renowned management guru, and he has written something like 30 books, and they've sold something like 4 million copies. So at the end of each chapter, we have a insight from Professor Charan talking about my story converting into some sort of a theory which will be relevant for the readers. So all in all, I believe that the book has come out well in terms of its interest level. I've got many people who have read the book, given me these feedback. So this is not something my perception that the book has come out well, but this is based on what I've heard from others. And also, it is already a bestseller on Amazon in the entrepreneurship and business books for many, many days. Is #1 seller. So all in all, I think all these inputs from different angles have reinforced in me belief that it's a very good book, and it's a lot of value addition. Whoever read it has said there's a lot of take-home values for this.
Actually, as I was reading it, Mr. Mariwala,
Anuradha, let me just finish 2 minutes.
Sorry.
Went into the name of the book, and I'm running an organization by the name of Ascent for helping entrepreneurs scale up. I threw a challenge to them, and they came out with this name, and which has been liked by everybody. And finally, the cover of the book, which is very unique, So I didn't go to the publisher in terms of suggesting a cover. I went to a specialist, and she only designs covers. And she read the whole book. She sat with me, trying to understand me. And the cover reflects openness, transparency, and innovation. Truly unique, very minimalistic, very simplistic. So it portrays me at one level. So I think all in all, it's total package deal as I see it. The name of the book, the cover, and of course the content, which is very interesting and with a lot of take-home value.
Mr. Mariwala, you sound like you're talking about one of the many brands that you've created and overseen the creation of at Marico.
Yeah, I feel so excited. This is different. The compared, okay, brand building, brand creation also had its own set of challenges, but this is very different for me. And, the kind of marketing we have done in terms of, talking at various events and social marketing, digital marketing. So it's a big challenge. Marketing a book is something which maybe I should write one more book on.
Okay.
But it is without spending any money through mass media. I think we've done a lot of television interviews, press, social media, events like this, and many more to come up. So all in all, I feel good about it, as good as I felt when I launched the brand and the initial starting point in terms of, the brand succeeding or getting the right kind of a feel that the brand is on the right track. I am getting the same feel on this book also.
This book, that's lovely to hear. So when you've called it harsh realities, in this journey that you had when you started out as a working, you joined your family business, I think you were 21, 22 years old, and today as someone who's who managed to demerge this the consumer goods business from the original family business, took it public, has since then you've given up being the managing director. You're the chairman of Marico, so you've sort of taken a little bit of a back seat, or quite a bit of a back seat. When you look back at such a long period, what would you say when you say harsh realities? What would you say were the harsh realities that really stand out and were the building blocks of the career that you've built?
So many. If I had to list down, I'll have to refer to the book. But starting point was initially when I joined the organization, and how do you build a business from scratch without getting any top kind of a guidance from the top. One, had to do it on your own. Number two, intricacies of being in a joint family business with so many family members, various different businesses within one company. How do you how do you navigate it through discussions with the family members and arrive at a consensus to move that business into Marico? How do you attract talent? Multiple failures, and what are the learnings out of these failures? And I think I've highlighted those failures just to point out to the readers that every person has failures and setbacks, and if you are afraid of failures and setbacks, then you stop taking risks. So I've had multiple of them, but after each failure there has been some learning, and I've covered that in the book. What has been the learning out of that failure? And it has really helped me a lot in improving my own journey and improving the business performance. So a lot of failures, and then fighting with some multinational corporations, going public. I think there are multiple managing board, looking at the purpose of an organization. I think each chapter has a different flavor to it in terms of learning, and as I see, people may find different benefits out of it depending on whether are you a student or you are a professional or you are an entrepreneur.
Yes. Let me ask you to tell us a little bit about the, being part of a family business and then making the decision to leave it because you saw better prospects if you were to go your own way. And you mentioned the word emotion right at the top of this conversation, saying that your wife her inputs helped create the emotional landscape that this journey has unfolded in. You want to tell us how difficult it is emotionally to break out and free from a family business, and what is the kind of I know it's a while back now, but what are some of the things that you had to keep in mind and what came up that you had to consider in order to make that break from family?
So the way things panned out, first of all, I think I've derived a lot from the family in terms of my own childhood, learning from the family, working in the joint family, values of consensus building, values of loyalty, values of respect. I think all that really helped me as I grew up. Values of tolerance. But I didn't separate from the family when Marico was formed. It was not a financial separation. It was a management separation, wherein I got a freedom to manage that business which I wanted, because we were in a company which had diverse businesses without any synergy in them, and so many family members. So I wanted autonomy in terms of decision making, and if I did well, then I could plan my future based on how I performed. So it was a break from ownership and management, and I wanted a management autonomy and not really a financial autonomy. Where in the new company also it was
He did come later.
Sorry.
The financial break also happened later. Eventually.
It happened subsequently, but the whole objective was not to lead to a financial break. It happened because of some differences of opinion. But I mean, out of four, like my father had three brothers, so I'm still with one of my uncles, and I'm the only son. So me and my uncle and his family are joint promoters in Marico, and I bought out financial interest of two of my other uncles. But in a family, as family grows and the business grows, sometimes there could be differences of opinion, and I think you have to deal in a mature manner. How do you separate? It took almost 2 to 3 years for me to untangle all that, but it happened smoothly, and I relied a lot on a family mentor whom the whole family respected, and it's very important that in a joint family, large family, you get some outsider who everybody respects in the family. I can't get my own person and say that let's appoint him as the mentor. That would never work out because others would always feel suspicious that he's my man.
Yeah.
But in this case, if the whole family respects that person, if that person is capable, then it really helps. So many times when families, many of the viewers may be family, maybe in family business, it's very important that you deal with family issues in a very mature manner. You have to build consensus. That means it may take some time. It may take maybe 1 or 2 or 3 years, and that's what happened in both the cases. The first time when the management separated from ownership, and the second was when the ownership itself was realigned.
Yeah.
So I think you need a lot of patience, and you need to build consensus to drive this journey. And you can't say that I want to do it my way. It'll never work. If that happens, then there is an issue of a long-term conflict at the family level, which can actually impact the business in a very negative manner. I see Professor Ramcharan has joined. So maybe
yes. Hi, Professor.
Thank you. Hi, thank you. My apology. Thank you. Good morning.
Good to see that you managed to join us. I just wanted to ask you, how unusual is Harsh Mariwala's story in the context of somebody wanting to break free from being part of a large family-owned business and being able to do that and then go on successfully to, on his journey? How unusual?
Well, the key point here is that it's not only unusual, there are lots of lessons people can have. And here, extricating from a large family, we have examples in public domain where the extricating from examples, splitting company, splitting families has been a very difficult situation. But given the circumstances at the time, and taking a very, very well-known family from a commodity business and creating a very, very differentiated business and taking from there to such a height is very unusual. I can compare that companies and families in Brazil and Japan, in China, India and America and so on. So I think it is the intricacies, it is the specifics, it is the humanity of it are very, very different and they're very unique. And when people read the book, they should see that there are many, many ideas and hints that are different and they are replicable and people become aware of it.
You've worked, pretty closely with Mr. Mariwala for several years now. He has reached out to you as a consultant, as a mentor. I sometimes even traveled to various cities to catch you for a few hours at airports even. What would you say is his biggest success after he managed to break free and start Marico? Well,
he was going, learning, seeing, And the second thing is that I'm allowed to see in my life many, many people. He has a unsatiable appetite to learn. People go in the evening to Ahmedabad and learn a number of concepts, number of things, come back and then use the learning. So those two habits, characteristics, drives are very central, but ultimately it is the people he attracts. He is a magnet for that. And you can't build a company to go to heights without attracting the people better than him. Sure. And that's him. He attracts people better than him. And he didn't have facilities to interview such people. And he got these people from big companies like Unilever and so on. So they look basics and common sense. And in my 50 years, I keep saying, common sense is very uncommon. And that common sense is a huge, huge value. And you learn, you go consumer, you attract people. And you treat people. These are the things that separate him. A combination like that separates him to do that.
Yeah.
And he's never satisfied that you've achieved something, because the road ahead is enormous. It's not ever fulfilled.
Yeah. Let me get Mr. Mariwala in here. You know, there are so many things to talk about that you've mentioned in the book, but before we move to something else that I find very interesting, I want you to talk a little bit about you know, being part of a joint family where all your fortunes are together, and where, you know, security and well-being and welfare from a child, you've seen that everything is collective, and individualism and individual aspirations, individual likes, dislikes, ambitions are not really a priority. In fact, they are not given precedence. It's the collective over the individual or the singular. How would you explain your desire to strike out then on your own, given that you came from a background where to strike out on your own is not encouraged at all?
It's a difficult question to answer, but let me try. I think one is, I mean, there are two separate aspects to it. One is what you want to create, and can you work with other family members in building that? Now, there is no one right answer, you know. I think a lot depends on the family, the other members, your equation with them, their capability, their ambitions. So I think a lot will depend on that. Of course, you're saying that the collective is more important. And then there is a wealth creation, which is, I mean, I always looked at family not from my personal, shall I say, interest. Just because I built the business, it is not mine. Okay, I always viewed it that it was family's business, you know. And it was not just because I had a 25% share being the only son of my father. Just because I built it into a big business, that did not entitle me to get higher ownership. So that's where the collectiveness in terms of thinking comes in, you know. The individualism comes in because you want to create something and you don't see that happening collectively. But that ambition, that desire to perform, to build something, ultimately, I'm a little bit more individualistic from that point of view, that, okay, I need to be given a certain freedom to operate, but not from the point of view of greed or money. It is more to build something which will have perpetuity, which will have long-term impact on the overall Indian business scenario, as well as whatever the earnings come out of it in terms of giving back something to the society. So it's not done for a motive of financial wealth, let me put it that way. It's more to do with building something which is sustainable and which has perpetuity for a long period of time.
And that's linked to your sense of self, identity, and even ego, isn't it? And I think that positively.
Yeah, I would think so, you know, because I've to me, money is not relevant at all. After some stage, I don't think anybody is going to. So my lifestyle may not have changed dramatically after whatever the business was built from X to Y. So I view also myself as a trustee. I have to give a lot back to the society, not just financially, but in terms of time also. And it does not matter whether I'm X or Y, in terms of financial wealth.
Okay. You want to talk to us about the fact that when you decided to go from to create Marico and to get into the consumer goods, into the fast moving consumer goods business and the market, the first thing that you needed to do was to to build the brands and to take them to market, and B, to be able to distribute them. And Professor Charan talked about your sort of the fact that you're attuned to understanding the consumer's needs and the consumer mindscape. You want to give us a sense of how difficult it was, or what were the challenges in making that transition to being a consumer goods company?
So I went through my own learning curve, and every day has been learning for me, as Professor Charan was saying, whether it's distribution or marketing or understanding consumer habits or building an organization structure or attracting talent. And I always aspire that, future has to be better than what it is today. That hunger, that burning desire to succeed has always been within me from the time I started working. And there will be setbacks. I'm okay, setbacks, but setbacks should be treated as learning. And sometimes you win, and they say sometimes you lose, but I say sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. And out of each failure, as I mentioned earlier, there are learnings. So I think that's where I come from. But I have, over a period of time from where I started, because I'm just a commerce graduate and I didn't study any management, nor was there anybody to teach me any management concepts or brand building. I had to do it on my own, by traveling, by going to the ad agency, by learning, going to these thought leaders. IIM and Ahmedabad and what professors talked about. So it just evolved over a period of time, and with every evolution it's still evolving. And now the whole scene is changing to digital marketing and things like that. So I think the overall marketing scenario, FMCG scenario has changed with over a period of time, and my skill set also has evolved as I've experienced and as we have grown. So it's not something that on day one but I'm not a technology-based person, so I'm glad this business doesn't require a very high degree of, shall I say, technology. I can understand, but I can't handle technology if it is a highly technology-led business, I may be at sea in terms of how to handle that. And I also don't like businesses which need you to go to Delhi, get a license. I've hardly gone to Delhi in my whole journey of 40, 50 years to get any favors from the government, because our sector is delicensed, and that's what suited me. And ultimately you win because you do well and you manage the company well, and not because you got something out of favor from the government. So
it's not the external factors and the environment that you have to manage.
Correct, absolutely.
Right. So you want to tell us about the famous David and Goliath story and how
yes.
not just gave off Nihar, but at some point co-opted it by buying it. You have to narrate that story, and then Professor Charan has to come in to tell us what that signifies.
How much time do we have? Because this can take half an hour. It can be done in 5 minutes or so. So tell me.
We will take the shorter version because I can see questions coming in for you. So
that's why I asked you this question.
And keep the longer version for the book.
Yeah. So those who are interested, they can look at the book. It's much more in detail. But very briefly, we had gone public in 1996. Parachute was our largest brand, contributing to about 60-70% of our turnover. And it was under attack from Levers, because Levers had bought over Tomco, which is Tata oil mill companies. And as a part of that, they acquired the brand Tata Nihar, and they acquired one more brand in Coco Care. So they had two brands, and they were giving us a signal that they're going to be serious about it. They talked in their analyst meet, they talked to the trade that, we will be able to give a big fight to Parachute. They will suffer. And to some extent, there was a fear built into us. And within the trade also, and I had to decide. There were a lot of approaches made to me by by bankers, by the chairman himself calling me up. I went to Professor Charan and he said that this is your resource generating engine. You have to protect it because this is some business you know inside out, and for them it's a new business. For you, it is something which you will personally devote your time to it. For them, it may handle 3 levels below the chairman's level. So you have the right, shall I say, uh, opportunity to take them on. Wherever you're weak, you try and improve. So that weakness was in the area of distribution, rural distribution. We took steps on that. We improved the quality of the product. And then there was a morale issue in terms of people are feeling a little low. How come we are taking them on? So our share prices fell. So those 2, 3, 4 years were quite stressful in terms of taking them on. I mean, it went on that fight for 3, 4, 5 years, and then at the end of it, we didn't lose any market share, but some of the weaker players lost market share. And at some stage, they realized that they were not able to grow, and by then there was a lot of integration with Unilever's. Hindustan Lever with Unilever, and they decided to sell the brand which we acquired from them. So actually from selling it to them, we acquired their Nihar brand, which has been one of our best acquisitions till date because I mean it has really fitted us beautifully. That brand is relatively stronger than in East, and it has really paid us huge dividends in terms of overall growth, profitability, and consolidation in that sector. So I think that's the story, but it has made us far more confident, and we felt great about it.
And you sort of removed a little bit of the drama that call the
that's for the readers to read.
That's for them to discover. But Professor Charan, what made you advise Mr. Mariwala at that point to stay the course, to sort of take on the large consumer goods company in this country and globally, the second largest, or one of the largest, definitely?
Yeah, so Anuradha, when Harsh got the call that night from Mr. Dadiset, it was so clear that he used the phrases to the effect, if you don't sell, Hindustan Lever will destroy you. Look at the threat. And they had the resources to do that. So having been seeing these companies, where large companies could destroy small companies, but knowing Harsh's resilience, imagination, drive, knowing the consumer. So I said, your competition is not the chairman. It is somebody at the 3rd or 4th level. You can do much better than him. And it's a small business. And Mr. Dadiset was an acquisitive chairman of Unilever.
Yeah.
And I knew he's going to move in 5 years, 4 years, 6 years. I've been with Unilever parent in London for years, for decades. So I've known continuous chairman of the parent Unilever. And it's a musical chairs game kind of thing, the rotating door, every 5, 6 years. And so I was very clear, you competing with the person who's in charge of the brand. Just drive him to the wall.
Just drive him to the wall.
To the wall, yeah, exactly. But he's no match to you. And he's one of those guys who looks for funds. And protect your business, go at it. We'll see. The chairman had the power to offer such a high price in the stock market. You can acquire some. But if you have reasonably good control in the family, you can't do much. So I go through this quite a bit across the globe because the acquisitive large companies will do anything they want when they want to acquire somebody and grow their companies through acquisitions.
Yeah. Mr. Mariwala, there are a lot of questions coming in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start taking some of these questions and then, add on some of mine wherever they're relevant. So there's Rajiv Kumar who wants to know, do you think the youth have the same drive towards entrepreneurship today?
Absolutely. We've seen so much of youth coming, setting up new age businesses. And all the unicorns which have happened in the last 1 year, 100%, there is much more drive actually, because the youth has seen that other youths of their age, 25, 30, 35-year-old guys are establishing unicorns. So I think that itself has given a huge fillip to the whole entrepreneur journey. And on top of that, you get funders, different type of funding, whether it's PE, startup funds. So there is enough of funding available if you have a good idea. There are backers, there are consultants. So definitely the environment is far, shall I say, amenable to starting. And the technology plays a very important role in today's businesses. So the short answer is yes, youth has it. Ultimately, a lot depends on your own genetic coding, as Professor says it. Do you have it within you in terms of that desire to succeed, that grit, which is a combination of determination and passion? Because people will fail, but if you have the passion and if you are not determined, then you'll just give up. But if you combine passion, determination, perseverance, and turn it into grit, you will fight back and you'll make it succeed. So the short answer is yes, youth have it, but not necessarily all the youth. A lot will depend on, does it come from within? And I think there are enough number of youngsters who are looking at new businesses and they are succeeding and they are going to grow much, much larger as the time goes by.
Okay, your Anjali Bhartiya says, the book is also about the cultural evolution of India. Why did you think it was important to trace that in a business book?
So I think it gives an overall framework in terms of what the family was and how the family regarded the quality of the product. So starting point was quality and how family transitioned from a trading to a manufacturing to a value-added. So how in a family transitions take place with the next generations coming in. For example, my grandfather was in trading, my father and my uncles went into manufacturing, and I went from manufacturing to FMCG. So I think it's very important for family managed businesses to give that historical perspective because there are benefits of being in a family managed business. How do you resolve family managed differences of opinion? And I thought that was very, very, very necessary to give overall flavor to the book.
Actually, as someone who's read the book, it enriches the book tremendously to have the origin story and to have that kind of a socio-cultural context. It really gives them far better understanding of the business. Professor Ramcharan, Dhruv Kopikar wants to know, how are Indian business families different from business families in other parts of the world?
There are many similarities. One of the most observable difference compared to in China or Brazil is the families still have this cultural, it's historical. The eldest son should be the successor. I've gone through that number of families. And this is a real issue in many of the families. The other thing is not just the Indian families. In the current environment of internet, many people having their children educated in places like Harvard, Ahmedabad, Calcutta. Many of the children don't want to be part of the large family, don't want to be becoming a CEO in the company. And there's a false sense when the child doesn't want to do this and the parent want to force it to be united family. That actually comes apart later. There is a big condition change in going forward. I saw a similar thing in China too, where I'm sitting at the dinner table and the father is saying, why don't you persuade my daughter to come and run the business? Right there, and I have the interpreter. So I'm listening to the daughter, what her interests are and so on. So I excuse the daughter and talk to the father, and I say to something like this: you're going to go away, she's going to live here. What will she remember? And that got the message to him. So No two families are the same anywhere. And the parents need to come to terms that what will make the child's life and happiness.
Mr. Mariwala, you need to. I'd like you to add here how you manage the succession at your company. You have handed over the company to a team of hand-picked professional managers, and your own children, while they're associated via the board, at least I think your son is, they're not running Marico, isn't it? And what made you, how come you, how did you manage to do that? Was that difficult? Did you want your children to, pick up the reins from you? Because that is what a lot of Indian parents, Indian families, especially business families, are known to do, isn't it?
So you're right. I think as you put it rightly, as well as Professor Ramcharan put it rightly, the parents expect their children to follow them in whatever they are doing. And it is accepted that they'll be hierarchical in terms of succession planning, But I think the business environment is changing, and it's changed quite a lot compared to what it was in the past. Internationally, if you see it, I think it's much less hierarchical. In India, it's far more hierarchical. But the business complexity is increasing. And if you have to succeed in business, I think there will be a break. So I may have pioneered that moment in India, or one of the first movers in that area. But I see a big shift happening in the Indian corporate environment as far as the families are concerned and succession is concerned over here. Because the business pressures itself will demand that it could be managed because of high degree of complexity by somebody who is best equipped to manage. Now, you have to marry the person's, your children's interest with the business needs, And as Professor was saying, no point pushing children for the sake of pushing just because, but they have to enjoy life, So, I mean, thank God both my children are so well settled today in terms of whatever they're doing, and they're enjoying their journey. And they also are playing a strategic role in the company at a board level. My son is playing that role, but my daughter is managing my personal charity, and she's doing exceedingly well in that area. My son is started an investment office, and he also does it extremely well. I'm very proud of both of them. So it's worked out as I would say it's a win-win from all angles,
And you never, Mr. Mariwala, you never wanted either of them to run your business, like Professor.
No, I don't think it is left on me. I think that's what I'm trying to say. The father should not decide, I think what does the business need at one level, and what do the children want to do is at the other level, So I think that's where, and the biggest problem is the father decides that I want my children to do that. That's not right, Ultimately, it's there. What is their strength? Each person is born with a certain strength, and you need to mold their career, their future based on their strengths and what they like doing.
Anuradha, let me mention one thing that people must come to realize.
Please.
A child who is an executive chairman of a board adds more value than the child running a company. And the reason is that as an executive chairman, he can devote more time to external trends, new technologies, new ideas. Has a perspective, do you have the right CEO, right board, or not right board, or getting coaching for the CEO, or dismissing the CEO. And so what Harsh has done is now more opportunity for his son and the daughter on the board, that they now perpetuate this company much better than just running the company themselves. Instead of doing it, get the best people in the world who could take this company forward.
And like Mr. Mariwala said, it's quite unusual, isn't it? Is your family one of the only families to have done this?
There are some families who've done it, but in those cases, many family members were involved in managing the company. There were like 7, 8 family members. In case of Pidil, they've done it recently. Dabur, which has done it some time back. But in my case, I was the only person who was running the company. So to that extent, it is different.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take a question
Go ahead,
from.
Anuradha.
Yeah, Leander Barreto, and Leander wants to know, Mr. Mariwala, which brand do you take to be your greatest success?
It's like asking, who's your favorite child.
Yeah, right.
There is no one brand, in my opinion. I think our two major brands are Parachute and Saffola, which I built from hardly any base. So I would say both are equally valuable to me. And I cannot be a partial that, okay, this brand is better than, or I value this brand more than the other one. But in terms of size, Parachute is much bigger, just for the sake of listeners.
Okay. Ajit Kamath says Marico is a learning institution. How did you create that? How did you make that happen? What are the top three things an entrepreneur should inculcate? So maybe Harsh, after you take the first part and the second part of the question, Professor Ramcharan, I'm going to ask you to take the what are the top three things an entrepreneur should inculcate.
So I think learning comes out of experience, and we believe that whatever talent comes into, we are a very flat organization. And because we are a flat organization, there are very few hierarchies. There is high degree of empowerment. When you have very high degree of empowerment, a person does a far more wider job. So that itself is learning. And then there is nobody sitting on top of you, because the boss also has enough number of people reporting to him. So you are given a lot of freedom. Of course, you have to be capable to be in that role. So freedom is very important, freedom and empowerment. And then we encourage people to take risks. It's okay to fail. We will not punish failures. We have very high degree of job rotation, wherein we rotate people on an average once in 3 years. That person gets rotated if you are at a middle or middle senior level. And then what we do is we also make people, our own members, wear what we call our organization hat. So we put them in task forces for future planning. So they get to know what exactly, or we have a shadow board of directors. They get to know what exactly they put themselves into our shoes or my shoes, and then they recommend something. So that itself is a huge learning ground. We encourage people to interact with each other, very high degree of openness, trust. So the culture which has been worked upon for many, many years has also played a very important role in making Marico a learning organization.
Right. And when you say shadow board, you would give the same information and all kinds of, for your eyes only, confidential information available to people who you expect.
So shadow board is given a certain challenge. For example, a few years back, shadow board give us a way to grow in future. So we take some critical challenge and ask shadow board to come. So it's not like a board of directors, but with a specific challenge which is the organization is facing.
Okay. What are the top three things an entrepreneur should inculcate?
Yeah. So, Anuradha, I missed a word in your question. Could you repeat that again?
What are the top three things an entrepreneur should inculcate?
Oh, okay. Good news about the world is there is no standard recipe. So I see people like Jeff Bezos of Amazon, who's totally different from Elon Musk of Tesla. So these are kinds of things. So I give you what I think could help people going forward. One of the three things is a very clear sense and conviction what that bullseye is you want to get through. It could be a consumer need. It could be something else, but not these numerical targets. It is something you are keen, you have conviction. It is a path nobody has gone there. And you're going to go through a lot of resilience to get there. And that conviction, that consumer need, that bullseye you want to get to. And this is something people have not done, something different, something differentiated. And many people think it's impossible. The second part, your internal resilience. You're going to go ups and downs. Yes, there are times when you don't have enough funding available, so on. And you continue to figure out problem solving, search it. And the third thing is you got to have people with you who will stick with you in the same foxhole.
Mm.
You alone cannot do that. And the people with you, sometimes you got the wrong people with you. So you got to make a change.
Mm.
But this resourcefulness, searching, because you don't have many resources with funding and people and scale. So innovation of that kind, it expands the mind when you search that to do that. Harsh recognized very early he needed people of a different kind. He has no facilities to interview people. So he reaches out to people who are very high level in large companies, making very good money, have a career.
Mm.
So he takes them to the hotel. There he interviews them, shows them, and he's a magnet to attract them. What does he do? He's able to paint his dream, which has legs, which has concreteness. And we see that you can do more with him in your life. More satisfaction of getting things done, directly reporting to the CEO that you 3 levels below the chairman of Unilever.
Right.
So those are the characteristics, and we not forget it, that in the entrepreneurship, there are more failures in the entrepreneur's life than successes. Tolerating those failures as experiments for learning, instead of saying, I'm failing. There are some of the psychological things that are very critical.
Mm. You know, you mentioned failure. Harsh talks about learning from failure, a lot. And I found it interesting, Harsh. Actually, I think it's a conversation you did with Barkha Dutt recently, and I was listening to that. And you said something, if I'm not mistaken, you said that, MBAs and management graduates and, people who come out of management schools, are they more risk averse and more afraid of failure than the non-pedigreed, if I can use that term, in terms of professionals?
First of all, when please talk.
No, please go ahead, Harsh. Go.
I want both of you to take that. So, okay, why don't you continue, Mr.
When they pass out of management schools, they are very high in demand. Everybody wants to recruit them. So they are coming from a high that, okay, there's very high expectation from me. And in the initial years of their career, there is a little bit of risk aversion, because if something doesn't work out right, then that will appear on their biodata, And there's a fear they have that, okay, if I fail very early in my career, then how will I be viewed by the corporate world? So I believe that it's not that everybody faces that, but many of them, because of the fact that they have arrived in terms of whatever they passed the MBA from a school of management and they are in high in demand, relatively they would like to play a bit safer, though everybody may not fit that mold.
Sure. Professor Ramcharan?
You see, I am looking largely in the American scene, Harvard Business School.
Yes.
Those who want to be entrepreneurs, they actually take a course in entrepreneurship at Harvard. You get segregated right there. And they start right from there. Now, I must be in India too. Many of the people start their entrepreneurship part while they're doing their MBA. And so, very hard to generalize. There are people who go to a large company for 3-4 years, start their own, build the networks. So I've seen here, somebody did an MBA, went to work for BCG or McKinsey, got 3-4 years experience, got the network, started a company, fantastic job. I've got some of those here. So you have to go to the individual side of it.
Sure, not to generalize. Okay.
And it will come out, if they are risk guys, it'll come out sooner or later in them.
Okay, I have a question, Mr. Mariwala, from A.U. I'm guessing this is on a social media handle. Why has Marico not got into selling coconut water or even selling value-added jelly made from coconut water like Nata di Coco?
Sorry, what is Nata? What is it?
Nata, Nata di Coco. jelly made from coconut water?
So on second question, maybe the market for jelly made from coconut water may be very small. We are large size, relatively large size organization. Anything new we do, we would like to have a certain minimum turnover. As far as coconut water is concerned, it goes into a different sphere. We are focused on beauty and wellness, and this goes into, your whole distribution network is very different. It's more impulse purchase. So, and just being in coconut water may not be sufficient. Then you have to go into juices and other aerated water and juices like many other players have gone. So, standalone, it does not make sense to get into coconut water unless you have a range of products which are based on fruit juices and,
Did
or
you
fruit.
make an acquisition?
Sorry?
I said, didn't Marico just make an acquisition? Direct to consumer juices?
That's different. That's different. No, we are not in juices. We bought an acquisition Beardo, which is a brand for
Beardo
and just these two, but not in coconut water.
Right. Okay. There's someone called Manan wants to know, I'm part of my family business and I'm among the youngest. Is it important to gain experience elsewhere before I join my own family business?
Yeah, a lot depends on what you want to do in life. If you are clear about it, that okay, you want to be a professional, then you can join an organization. A lot depends on the kind of business you are in, and if you want to join the family, how large is the family, will you be given freedom? But I think joining a very large organization, if you want to join a family managed business, may not work, because then you are handling a very minute portion of a larger business. If at all you want to gain experience, I would say, and join family business later, you should join a startup or something where there is a lot of things are happening and you are given a wider canvas of things to do, or at early stage business and definitely not a large organization.
Okay. Professor Ramcharan, Shashidhar Kote wants to know, are we coming to an era where there are Indian management success stories, aka in pursuit of excellence?
One of the key things about companies is business savvy. And business savvy, business thinking, consumer thinking, if you don't have it, you don't want to use it. As a CEO, you're not going to succeed. So we all call that management. But at the end of the day, it is the business and the consumer. And the management comes because you're going to build a large company. You're going to lead people, you're going to manage people, you're going to manage systems, you're going to create systems. So idea here is, India compared to other countries, and you know how many countries I go through, Indian business mind is fantastic. Is great. And we have people, but not enough, who can learn and who can manage, who can lead large companies. And that we need to increase. So we have people coming from the institutes and so on, and hopefully they're learning. We have a number of Indian people in America running the largest companies of the world today. They were born in India.
True.
But they are business people. I know them who are running these large companies in America. I've met with them. Their business acumen is unparalleled. And then also their leadership skills are unparalleled. But it is a business acumen that says what to focus, what not to focus, how to make money in it. It's natural in their DNA.
Are you saying that's an Indian trait in all the global managers, the global corporate leaders who have who are first generation Americans who have just sort of who studied here and then gone off and become the head of ABC and the head of Microsoft, and all of these gentlemen are people who've had their higher education here and then supplemented it over there.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I know them and I compare with their competitors without naming them. The business acumen of Satya Nadella is unparalleled compared to his competitors, and I know them too. There's no match. And so the CEO of Adobe, Shantanu, no match, business thinking, no match. Sundar Pichai, no match. They're quiet. They don't beat the drum. And then you see the competitor beating the drum all the time in the press, management, leadership, and the companies have gone nowhere. So business acumen, India, absolutely stands out. No doubt in my mind. And second, what will be surprising, the Brazilians. I did not say Chinese. Because I've been Brazilians 35 years. China, I've spent a ton of time on the boards of 2 companies in China. I see this. Japan, I have that. And in America, many of our Indian people gone educated in India, gone there. Largely in technology, they went there. But they have the business acumen to rise, and they learn how to work with people. Why it did not happen 25 years ago? Our Indian people went there hot-headed, no answers better, faster than anybody, and they could not deal with the interpersonal skills. Now, that generation coming in, understand interpersonal skills.
Right. So there are a lot of lessons in excellence, but they don't have to be rooted in India. They are happening all over the world, created by Indian managers and management styles. That's what you're saying. I've got another question from Sriram Srinivasan. One of the harsh realities of business is with respect to cost control and cost pruning. When scale is limited in the horizon, then the only way is to prune costs, including human costs. What's your experience with respect to that?
Harsh, why don't you go with that one?
No, sir, you go. I think this is something you'll be able to talk better on the subject.
Yeah. You see, the key point is, when you are building your company, in doing that, you don't let the cost go out of hand. Continuous cost improvement is a key in every company. And here, yes, if there is a calamity of some kind, then you have a question, should I continue or should I cut the cost in a major way? Like the pandemic case. Now, the pandemic case, if you have a liquidity problem in the company, you have a choice to let the company go bankrupt and more people lose their job. Or you take people out and let the rest survive and then come back again. And the volatility of the business is common. So here you got to have your principles and live with it. I have an Indian company where in the pandemic, the revenues went down. But there was no liquidity issue, so they kept them on the payroll. Loyalty. They did that. If the liquidity is the issue, then the question is, do you want to have everybody lose a job?
Or save what? You mentioned the pandemic. Mr. Mariwala, when you see the extraordinary experience that individuals and corporations and companies have had to go through since March and April of last year, and we are still going through different challenges that keep getting thrown our way every few months, would you say, how did you find Marico prepared for this mother of all disruptions? Were you happy? Would you rate on a scale of 10 how well prepared Marico was to deal with this disruption?
So I think first of all, nobody knew what was coming. So it came like all of a sudden just came in one fine day without the advance notice. There was lockdown in last year, March, and that led to a lot of migration of people. And our biggest challenge, how do you get the supply chain going? And our biggest realization was that when you are digital savvy as an organization, when everybody has laptops and computers at home at senior and middle level, it's very easy then to start networking. Number two, culture in the organization plays a very, very important role. And our culture is highly empowering, not top control related culture, and very collaborative, very open and trusting. So I think our culture combined with digital savviness played a very, very important role in getting back to normalcy. And then we took a lot of initiatives. We encouraged people to take risk. We used digital means to connect with our retailers, with our vendors, with our distributors, and I think we are one of the first one to go off the block in terms of supply in the FMCG industry. And I think that credit has to go to digital savviness and culture, as it. So I think net we are able to improve our cost structure. We got an opportunity to become much more closer to the families of our members because we were communicating with them. We identified newer opportunities in terms of some of the new products in the area of health and wellness. So all in all, we have seen a lot of positives as far as we are concerned. Of course, pandemic has had its own set of negatives, which I'm not getting into. But because you asked me what are the positives, I'm saying it has huge positives in terms of cost structure, digital journey, new products. And working now, we will go in most likely with like a hybrid kind of a work from home policy where you can work few days from home, few days in office. So all in all, it's worked out quite positive, at least for us.
And you're happy with the way Marico weathered this incredible challenge?
I would think so. That's again got reflected in our overall market capitalization because it is almost 60-70% over the last one and a half years. So that the market is also endorsing that we are on the right track.
Professor Charan, I think I'm going to do this as the final question. This incredible experience of COVID-19, the pandemic, what has followed, and how it has impacted human life and experience. What is the lasting effect you see this leaving on corporations?
I think what I see across the globe, definitely America, India, China, Brazil, Japan, is the first time I see on a wide basis employees matter. Safety, care, eyes opening. It will change behavior of the bosses. We'll have to see. Employees getting more of voice inside. But this is a major shift for many companies. Some were doing it already. They had the culture for it. Many didn't have it. Many still don't have it. They think in America, increasing the basic wage from $12 to $15 will do. That's not it. But they're now creating mechanisms to say, no, employees matter. Safety, their voice, their education, their learning, upgrading their skills. That's a positive factor I see. My issue that I see, and I talk to the CEOs in private, that the inequality within a company is increasing, not decreasing. Disproportionate amount of the fruits you create is going to shareholders and not to the employees.
That I
will guarantee you in China, within 3 years, that will be dealt with. It has started. There will be regulation from the Chinese government for the distribution of the pie, of creating new wealth, that it cannot be given disproportionately to the management. This will change. It's going to come.
Employees matter, and that wealth cannot be disproportionately shared with the top leadership and management and even shareholders.
And the shareholders, yeah.
Yeah, I think personally, it's very heartening to hear you say that. because if that is a lasting impact the pandemic leaves on corporations and companies, I think maybe we'll have a better future as humankind and in this corporate world which we all belong to.
Yeah, Anuradha, it is imperative for the growth of the country's economy. Because if the employees get the right portion, it accelerates the GDP engine.
Yes.
The Henry Ford's $5 a day was the first one as a creator of higher economic growth. It's in the interest of the nation to do this. It's the interest in the company's interest, because more demand will come.
I like the fact that you're appealing to people's self-interest, if not their, altruism and desire to be altruistic. Professor Charan, Mr. Mariwala, I'm going to have to leave this conversation here. It's been very enriching. I would recommend Harsh Realities to anybody who's interested in how a company is built, how an entrepreneur works, how Marico, whose brands we are so familiar with, Parachute Tail, isn't it? We've all got something from Marico in our homes. Any of these things. And Professor Ramcharan's perspective on the perspectives beyond the here and now to a more to understand the theory at work, to understand principle, to understand higher principles. I really strongly recommend this book. It's also a vivid history of Bombay, of early business and how it started. There's a lovely story about how Mariwala, how the surname that Harsh Mariwala has came to be. And I'm not going to say anything more about it. For that, you should read the book. And with that, Reena, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Anuradha, for sharing such an interesting conversation. You managed to get, all little details from both Mr. Mariwala and Professor Charan to make a very, very interesting conversation. Marico is a household name, and I think now every time you pick up a product, the two faces are going to be there. So thank you so much, Mr. Mariwala. Congratulations on your new book, and Professor Charan, congratulations to you too. Thank you for being with us this evening. I request all our winners, all the questions that have been asked by you all and answered so interestingly and so well by our speakers. Rajiv Kumar, Dhruv Khopkar, Ajit Kamath, Leander Barreto, and Sriram Srinivasan. So please write in to us at tatalitlive.in to collect your vouchers, because Tata Click is gifting you those vouchers where you can read a book. In fact, Mr. Mariwala, one of the audience has asked if we want a signed copy from you, how do we get one from you?
Yeah, ask them to send it to you, and maybe you can send it to me and I'll get it.
Okay. So we'll do that. Thank you so much. Our next event, the Brightness of Book series, is The Great Indian Hindu Civilization by author Pawan Verma. He will be in conversation with the highly acclaimed writer Ashwin Sanghi on September 3rd, 2021. Our annual Tata Literature Live, the Mumbai Lit Fest, will be held online from 18th to 21st November 2021. So do watch out for our announcements on our social website, on our social media and our website. Till then, thank you once again and do stay safe. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.